We ask the questions. What is needed in the world? Is that going to
The problems facing Pakistan and its leadership are, even under normal circumstances, daunting. 177 million people, 60% of them living on less than $2 a day. Child labor, a common sight. Add to that a leadership challenged by the domestic Taliban, frequent drone attacks by the Americans, floods and other natural catastrophes, and a powerful military and intelligence establishment guarding its power. Pakistan's Prime Minister stands at the center of it all. Now the Supreme Court demanding he pushes for a corruption case against the country's president or else be held in contempt. Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani talks to Al Jazeera. Prime Minister Gilani, thank you very much for speaking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you.
All right. There are a wide range of issues to discuss, of course. I'd like to begin with the brewing political crisis in Pakistan, if we can. You're facing contempt of court charges. You could be convicted of up to 6 months in prison for refusing to open a corruption case against President Asif Ali Zardari. Now, I know you've been to prison in the past. Are you prepared to go back?
In fact, we have to discuss on the merit of the case. And I had appeared before the court previously, and my lawyer is the one who had been fighting for the rights of the, he was very active in lawyers movement, and he is extremely capable. And I don't think so that it'll happen like this as you have visualized.
Do you think it is worth supporting President Zardari in this case? In your opinion, and for posterity, is he clean?
Actually, President and the Senate and the National Assembly, if put together, that becomes the parliament, which is known as Majlis-e-Shura. Therefore, President is a part of parliament, and he has contested the election, and all the assemblies, like the National Assembly, the Senate, and all the 4 provincial assemblies, they voted for him, and he contested the elections, and there was no objection at all at that time.
But I'm talking, Mr. Prime Minister, about the corruption allegations against the President Zardari. It's not the first time that he's been plagued by corruption allegations. He was known as Mr. 10% in the past. It's not the first time that such accusations have been made against him.
I have objection for that. Whatever the charges were leveled against him, he fought those cases in the court. He was exonerated.
Do you think those charges were politically motivated? Perhaps?
Certainly, yes.
Then their dismissal is also politically motivated, isn't it?
There had been a lot of cases against him, and they were all political motivated. And even the cases, they were against me as well. I spent 5 years in jail because of those cases. And certainly I fought and got exonerated.
Do you feel that you're making a sacrifice right now by fighting this case in court?
That's something, it's misconstrued. Therefore, I have said that President is a part of parliament, and he has got the immunity, and he has not got immunity only in Pakistan. He has got transnational immunity even all over the world.
Well, President Zardari has said, relating to this particular case, that writing to Swiss authorities and asking them to write a letter to open the money laundering charges against him was tantamount to putting Benazir Bhutto's grave on trial. Is this what this is about, protecting Bhutto's legacy?
If we would have been protecting Bhutto's legacy, I would have not been sitting here as the Prime Minister of Pakistan.
You've said, Mr. Prime Minister, that you're willing to make any sacrifice for Pakistan, for democracy. Would you be willing to stand down if you are convicted?
Certainly, then there's no need to be stepped down. If I'm convicted, and I'm not supposed to be a member of the parliament.
Who controls Pakistan today? Is it your civilian government or is it the military?
We are following the constitution of the country. Therefore, according to the constitution of Pakistan, the chief executive is the prime minister. Therefore, if anybody you think is running the country is wrong.
How would you characterize the relationship with the military today?
At the moment, I have good relations.
Good relations with the military.
Exactly.
You know, from the onset, when you came to power, you wanted to take a tough approach with the military. You tried to put the ISI under the Interior Ministry, the intelligence services under the Interior Ministry. It didn't work. You had to backtrack. You said in a recent interview that we know everything, speaking about your government, that you're aware of everything, that your intelligence apparatus is fully aware of everything. Yet, you said that neither your government nor the intelligence services knew that Osama bin Laden was on Pakistani soil. So, Mr. Prime Minister, the world doesn't seem to trust what Pakistan says anymore. How do you respond to that? How do you get the world to trust you again?
It's a very simple answer. Because Osama, he didn't belong to Pakistan at the first place. And Osama, he was needed by the entire world. And therefore, all the intelligence agencies of the world, they failed. So was Pakistan.
So you weren't aware that Osama bin Laden was on Pakistani?
Certainly not.
Neither were the ISI?
Because had they known, then means the world should have known. Because they have more technology, high tech, they can, the entire world, he was the most wanted person.
Were you disappointed that your partner, the United States, didn't let you know, didn't make you aware of the operation that they were going to lead in Abbottabad against Osama bin Laden?
Yes, certainly when our ISI and the CIA, they were working together, they were working so closely, and we were the partners and against war on terrorism and extremism. Therefore, all high-value targets, they have been achieved with our and CIA both joint struggle. Therefore, we wanted that this should have been shared with us.
Right.
And so that was the reason why about the unilateral action against
but yet,
Pakistan.
when bin Laden
it
was
was not
killed,
well taken.
Right. When bin Laden was killed, you hailed it as a victory for terrorism, and just a few hours later, you said it was a violation of Pakistani sovereignty. So it almost sounds like you're playing different tunes to different audiences.
No. I think you will understand. I'll convince you, because when I told you, when the CIA and the ISI, they were working together, and they were achieving all high value targets together.
Right.
I was under the impression that we did jointly. But later...
And the Americans didn't inform the ISI about the operation in the end.
Later found that they did not inform. And then it was a unilateral action, which is against the sovereignty of my country.
Well, speaking of sovereignty, let's come to another sore point in the relationship with the United States, and that's the drone program, which you have time and time again said is a violation of your sovereignty. If that is the case, then why are the drones being launched from Pakistani territory?
First of all, I want to inform you that we did not allow or gave permission to fly drones from Pakistan, number one. And number two, drones are counterproductive. And we had discussed thoroughly with the US administration that we at times make lot of efforts to very successfully isolate the militants from the local tribes. When there is a drone attack and there is a collateral damage, at that time, certainly there is a reaction within the local tribes. And then the local tribes and the militants, they get united again. They make our job extremely difficult.
Right.
Then there is a less political space left for us, because we have a resolve, we have a will, we have the ability to fight against extremism and terrorism. But we need that the world should understand that these are counterproductive.
You say you did not allow the drones to be launched from Pakistani territory. Yet, until November, the U.S. operated its drone program from the Shamsi Air Base. I mean, that couldn't have happened without some knowledge or some assistance from Pakistan. Could it have?
In fact, during the previous regime, when General Musharraf was there, he had some understanding. He was wearing 4 hats. He was the Joint Chief, he was the Army Chief, he was the Chief Executive, and he was the President of the country. Therefore, everything was routed through one man, and nobody knew what's happening. Therefore, there was no Chief Executive at that time when this was happening. That was the reason.
But until November of just a few months ago, the drones were being launched from Pakistani territory.
They were never given the permission to do that.
But your military leadership, Mr. Prime Minister, has gone on record to say that if the civilian government asked it to shoot down the drones, that it would. So why don't you, if it is indeed a violation of Pakistani sovereignty?
That's true. Now, that's the recommendations which we had referred to the Parliamentary Committee on National Security, and they have already given the recommendations for the joint session of the Parliament. And that would be debated in the Parliament, and I'm in no position because I've not seen the recommendations as yet.
But when you look at the numbers, according to the New America Foundation, 3,000 Pakistanis have been killed in these drone attacks. In 8 years, 3,000. That's a very large number of civilian lives that have been lost. So it seems that, when we wait for a parliamentary committee to decide and so on, lives are being wasted. What timeline are we looking at?
We are a responsible nation. We are a nuclear power. We are not like those who are irresponsible. We are taking all this matter at the level of appropriate forums, and diplomatically we are already discussing with them.
Now, your country, Pakistan, also shut the NATO supply route into Afghanistan last November when 24 Pakistani soldiers were killed in Momand. Are you going to reopen that route?
That I have already discussed that after that incident, we have referred the matter to the Parliamentary Committee on National Security to revisit and to new terms of engagement and cooperation with US, ISAF and NATO to be recommended to the Parliament. And now, as and when the Parliament would meet, they would discuss all those issues, and they have to take a decision.
As the Prime Minister of Pakistan, do you believe that the supply route into Afghanistan should be reopened?
I'm a Prime Minister who is elected by 180 million people of my country. Therefore, the chosen representatives of the people is the Parliament. Therefore, when recommendations which have been made by the Parliamentary Committee, I haven't seen them as yet. It will be only discussed on the floor of the House.
What is Pakistan preparing for as far as the situation in Afghanistan? Are you preparing for the continuation of the civilian government in Afghanistan, or are you perhaps preparing for a return of the Taliban to power?
That's not our job. That's the job of Afghanistan to decide about the future. Our role is a facilitator. We are the part of solution and we are not the part of problems. It is the only, in my interest, we want a stable, sovereign, independent, prosperous Afghanistan.
What would be good for Pakistan? You say a stable, independent Afghanistan. Could that be perhaps a return of the Taliban to power?
That's up to them to take a decision, because we only support any political reconciliation in Afghanistan which is Afghan-owned and Afghan-led. We are ready to support that.
Well, the world, as you know, Mr. Prime Minister, is concerned that Pakistan is going to support the Taliban to retake Afghanistan. What do you say to that?
That's, I think the world is mistaken. We are not interested in Afghanistan. That is not our interest at all. We want that the people of Afghanistan, they should take the decision about the destiny of their own country.
If the Taliban were to return to power in Afghanistan, would you support them?
Whatever is the people of Afghanistan decides.
Now, for Pakistan, as you say, it's better to sow the seeds of democracy in Afghanistan. Is it better to sow the seeds of democracy or let the Taliban come back?
No, this is what you are expecting that I should say. My concern is the concern of people of Afghanistan. They are my brothers, they are my neighbors. The NATO, the ISAF, the US, they will finally leave. But we as neighbors, we have to stay for the rest of our life.
Right, but
therefore, we both have suffered. Therefore, my interest is that any reconciliation which is Afghan-led and Afghan-owned, we are ready to support that initiative.
Can you deny right now and right here that Pakistan is supporting the Taliban in Afghanistan?
We are not supporting. That's not our job. Why should we support?
Let's bring it back to Pakistan if we can, Mr. Prime Minister. And I want to talk about religious extremism in Pakistan because it's a concern for many people. There's a concern that it's a breeding ground for terrorism in Pakistan. And I want to address the blasphemy law here. Sherry Rahman, the current ambassador to Washington, made amendments to this blasphemy law, which you asked to withdraw the amendments anyway. Can I ask you why?
In fact, we respect the laws. We want that every law to be respected. We are not in favor of blasphemy. We are interested that there should be no misuse of law. And that is, if there is no misuse of law, there are more Muslims then minorities are affected by that law.
But isn't there something wrong with this blasphemy law in its current form?
There are...
An 8-year-old girl was accused of blasphemy for a misspelling error. Isn't there something wrong with this law?
Which I want to tell you is a misuse of law.
Sure.
That is not, the law is not bad. The misuse is bad. There are laws in many countries of the world. But for misuse, I'm concerned. And I have talked to a lot of the religious leaders, and they are evolving some consensus that this law should not be misused because it is not misused mostly against the minorities, but mostly against the Muslims themselves.
Are there going to be amendments made or not?
That's up to the religious scholars. We have got the Forum of Islamic Ideology Council. They are sitting there. Their role is to give recommendations to the parliament, and I have discussed with them that how can we stop misuse of law.
The reason I ask this is because your critics say that you're very reluctant to make amendments to this law because you're perhaps under pressure from the religious extremists in your country.
Number one, I always say openly, the women and the minorities, they are my constituency. I stick to the point. And everybody is aware of my logic. And number two, when Shahbaz Bhatti was killed, that was a bad incident, that was a tragedy, we condemn it, and immediately I made his brother, the real brother, elevated as an advisor to the Prime Minister with the status of full federal minister.
But we also see a rise in the number of attacks of minorities, of Christians in Pakistan. What are you doing, Mr. Prime Minister? What is your government doing to protect the religious minorities in your country?
We are doing our best, and our government is the only government in the country which is protecting the rights of the minorities, and not
How so?
only. No, we have already made the amendment in the Constitution, not that the minorities to be represented at the lower house. This time we have made it a point and made the amendments that representation should be in the upper house like Senate.
All right, there's so much to cover.
They have a voice.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to move on, if I can, to India. Another of your neighbors. Relations with India have also been tense. Where do things stand right now? Are India and Pakistan natural allies or natural enemies?
India and Pakistan, there had been a lot of misunderstandings, and we can't afford wars. We both realize that. We both are nuclear powers. Therefore, we have, after I became the Prime Minister, I requested Dr. Manmohan Singh myself to discuss issues with him. I met him several times. He seems to be a very genuine person, and we have agreed, both the leaders, we have agreed to discuss our all core issues, including the issue of Kashmir. And he's ready to discuss
because
with
many
us.
people wonder if India and Pakistan really can move forward when the issue of Kashmir hasn't been resolved, when the water issue hasn't been resolved.
There are few important issues like Kashmir issues, like water issues, like Sirp Creek issues, like Siachen issues, and many other human rights, and also drug traffickings and others. We have discussed all core issues, and we have already started our negotiations, and at all the secretaries level, they have already taken place, and now there would be a final with both the ministers for foreign affairs.
All right. Now, another country that you share a border with, Iran, there's increasing talk of Israel attacking Iran over its controversial nuclear program, and there's speculation that Pakistan would side with Iran. Is Pakistan...
You have already answered as a speculation.
All right.
How can I discuss on speculation?
Would you support Iran if there was military action against the Islamic Republic?
We are for peace in the region. Our plate is full. We don't want to destabilize the region. Therefore, for all issues, it should be done through dialogue.
Dialogue is the key word.
That is the only way forward.
What is your record? What do you think you have done to improve the lives of Pakistani people?
I have diversified my economy towards agriculture.
Right.
And today, despite the global recession, there is a food security in Pakistan, and which we were deficient in wheat crop. Now we are exporting wheat even despite 2 floods.
You speak of food security, Mr. Prime Minister,
yes.
But the numbers seem to contradict what you're saying. If you look at Sindh province, for instance, 72% of the population in Sindh is suffering food insecurity.
In fact, for the food security, I'm convincing you that we are exporting wheat.
Right.
That's the criteria, that we don't import wheat, we export wheat. And despite 2 floods and 2 floods in Sindh as well. But the second challenge which we are facing is the war on terrorism. And I can rightly say we have lost about $69 billion in this war against terrorism.
Yes, you've mentioned time and time again the sacrifices that Pakistanis have had to make on the war on terror. I'm talking in previous interviews. You've talked a lot about the sacrifices, which is right.
Sacrifices in form of casualties. This time, for the first time in my life, I'm talking about an economy that is $69 billion. And the third is the challenge, which is extremely important, that we are running short of electricity in the country. That's a great challenge.
Just give us perhaps a concrete example of how your government, what your government has done to improve the lives of Pakistanis on a grassroots level. Because if you look at the trend on the ground, the situation seems pretty dire. The life expectancy is down 65 years to 65 years in 2011.
Now, in one question, I can't give you the policy statement, but in one line I can say we have introduced a Benazir income support program, and through that BISP program, which is internationally recognized, and we have made the women of Pakistan empowered.
But the Benazir Bhutto income support program only is only a small amount of money, less than $20 from what I understand, and critics say it only goes to constituents within the Pakistan's People's Party.
There is no constituency that's not political motivated. We have done a house-to-house survey, and whosoever is poor or living in a poverty line, despite from which party he belongs to, that is the reason it is successful and recognized in the whole world. And for a meager assistance you are talking about, we have given a life insurance and health insurance to that family. And from each family household, we are giving a technical training to one person, so that he can take the burden of the family. And through that, we are giving some of the assistance that is 300,000 rupees in Pakistan rupees to do some business of their own.
What about corruption? That's a big issue in Pakistan. What has your government done to tackle corruption? Transparency International says Pakistan is at 134 out of 182 countries for corruption. They also say that a record $94 billion have been lost in either tax evasion, bad governance, or corruption in the 4 years that you've been in power. What do you say to that, and how have you tackled this problem?
In fact, what the figures you have given, again, I have to differ with you because whatever that has been given in the newspapers or through information is not always correct.
But it's not just Transparency International, it's the World Bank and several countries that are saying that corruption is an endemic problem in Pakistan.
The World Bank report, which was given in the World Economic Forum, despite all odds, Pakistan is doing extremely well, and it's moving in the right direction as far as the economy is concerned. Certainly, we have to do the legislation first. We are bringing the accountability bill very soon in the parliament. And at the same time, I must tell you that due to successive dictators, there had been a lot of change in the constitution. And this is the first ever president of Pakistan who has given volunteer his powers to the parliament, and we had made the parliament effective and more answerable.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank you
speaking
so
to Al
much.
Jazeera.
Thank you.
Thank you.